everybody. Welcome to Get in a Market, the show about jobs and product marketing, product management, where your job role is real, job is real.
You've roasted me so many weeks in a row because I've messed this line up, and now here you go.
I'm
just
consistent.
to rub it in your face.
We're at least consistent. I wanted to do it well so that I could show you that I knew what we were doing.
Good job, then. Job well done. Mission accomplished. Put the banner behind you. Yeah.
If anything. Oh, we could get a banner.
We could get a battleship and a banner. And that way you could... A battle banner.
How much do you think a battleship costs?
More than $1. Probably less than $1 billion, right? I don't know.
That's quite a range.
What's like the eBay transaction fee on battleships?
I don't know. Let's ask our guest. We have a guest today. You can see them here. Alex Curley from many different things, many different names. You may know Alex from his Substack Semipublic. You may also know him from what we'll talk about more, Adopt a Station, and just his work in learning more about public media. But Alex Curley, welcome to the show. Super glad to have you here. Why don't you give a better intro than that to yourself or whatever else we started?
Oh, that was a great intro. Thanks for having me. I think the eBay transaction fee is 8%. So they'd be making a healthy sum off of your battleship purchase.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, Alex Curley. I write about public media. Semipublic is also a data gathering and analytics company that focuses on public media. It just lost its federal funding. Public media did in the U.S. So there's a lot of changes happening, and there are a lot of people who are interested in knowing about that. And also Semipublic, we launch products like Adopt a Station, which basically pairs people with a public media station in need, which we can talk about later. I also track layoffs through a product, the Public Media Layoffs Tracker. And I also run a jobs website for public media, and all of that is under Semipublic.
You had a lot of alsos. You're making me feel lazy.
Yeah, John, he does so much more than you, like on a minutely basis. For folks who may not keep up with all of the news, Alex, do you mind, and we're putting you on the spot here because one of the things we do on this podcast is throw guests on and just start hitting record. What is sort of the state of public media, and how has that changed since, say, last year?
Good question. So public media in the U.S. since the 1970s has gotten federal appropriations from Congress. They did flow through the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which was not a federal entity. It was an independent nonprofit that was set up by Congress that would distribute the federal funds for public media. So Congress appropriates to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Corporation for Public Broadcasting would appropriate out to stations. And what happened this year in July, Congress voted to not only rescind the 2 years of appropriations that had already been set aside for public media, but also not to continue the federal appropriations for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which would have then gone to public media stations. So all in all, public media stations in the U.S., they relied on federal funding overall for about 15-16% of their total budget, which is pretty significant. And there are a lot of stations that lost 30% or more. So it's changing every day. And I'm sure by the time anybody hears this, there will be something that happened. So Semipublic, what I run, is focused on keeping up with the changes.
I feel like you just made fun of us. By the time anyone hears it, they'll hear it quickly. That hurts.
Not to break the magic.
I heard John click a pen and then write something. I'm pretty sure, based on the timing, what you wrote down was Congress, what is it? And then a bunch of underlines.
Yeah, that's what I've got in my notebook. It's just like key terms that I got to look up. But the other thing is just some ideas that I had. Do you think anyone told the public media stations to just stop going out for Starbucks once a week to get that?
Yeah, probably.
Back?
I think it was also
one avocado toast away from
exactly.
having that fixed, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I was going to make the avocado toast joke, Nate, but you can have that one.
Speed to market and speed to joke is a big part of what we're doing here in Get to Market. Beforehand, we do a section. Do we do a section? We're thinking about doing a section.
I don't think we've ever actually done this section. You just always kind of hint at us doing it eventually.
Yeah, that's how I lead, is subtle passive aggressive hints. We're going to call this one breaking it down, where we just read through an article or talk about an article. Nate, you sent me an article and I had an emotional reaction to it
Yeah.
around how GM is going to stop including CarPlay,
And whatever the
Android
Android
Auto.
ones. Yeah, Android Auto.
That's how everyone feels about it. Whatever they're doing over
Whatever
there,
the other one
the
is.
Android thing. You seemed to be, I actually don't know if you were for it or against it. Alex, did you read this article? Do you know what we're talking about?
I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Okay. Nate, you're against this? You're for this? You're for this? You hate it.
Well, so part of the story is like some of this was born out of confusion because I think there were people who had thought this was only going to affect GM's like electric lineup of their electric vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like I think it's just all of their vehicles. They're just doing away with it. But it is just taking us back to a time when every vehicle had their own proprietary infotainment system, where you had your like your GPS was like sometimes DVDs, or they were like uploading from the dealerships or your repair shop, like all this kind of crazy stuff. Like we're kind of just going back to this world we've already lived. Like that's part of my thing with this is like we've already lived this world, and CarPlay and Android Auto kind of pulled us out of it, like into two separate, UIs and platforms or whatever. But like this was a thing we've already solved. Like we fixed it.
Mm-hmm.
You have this way you can interface it. You still have like some proprietary stuff in the infotainment system. You can do, depending on the car, you're doing like your air conditioning, and you can set up your phone separately to it if you just want to do like phone calls or just Bluetooth, whatever, how you want to interface with it. But now like this key thing, which was like, we don't need a separate GPS system. Maybe you do because you don't have cell service where you are, but like, we're just going back to this kind of every car maker has their own proprietary system, which is probably going to be a subscription that you're going to have to pay. Like BMW famously had those seat, like heated seat subscriptions.
Right.
Like how can we monetize everything that you use in your car? That seems to be kind of the direction we're going in, which I don't think, like, John, what is your opposition to like my point?
Okay. So this is where I went to, Alex, you're welcome for the ride. So I fell prey to I'm going to read half the article and then have a reaction to it, which, so now I'm publicly, like I read the rest and changed my mind, which is probably even more to my credit. Look at that. 2 things I did really well today. So until I learned that they were charging for it, I was just like, oh, it's just going to be free. There's some stuff there, Bluetooth. I thought, I wonder how much it actually costs product teams at auto manufacturers to build these different things. So now, so now I've got to get this iOS app because you got to get car and key and like all that sort of stuff as that's moving to the phones. Now I've got to support my interface on that thing and this thing, but I also have to have a default one in case it doesn't work. And what about, so just the complexity of supporting Android Auto and CarPlay. I honestly have no idea what it takes. And so I thought, like,
I don't know, but from a consumer perspective, it's much easier, right? To just use your phone.
Totally. Yeah. With that part, then one of them I realized, they're actually going to charge for it. Because in the article, when I read the rest of it, GM was saying it would be an add-on charge for and I thought, I'm going to go buy, down the road from me, there's I can't remember what it's called, but it's just old Volkswagens. And I'm going to go buy one of those. And I'm going to drive that and only that. Mm-hmm. It will actually run on 50% gas and the rest is burned oil. And I'm going to keep pumping that thing full of oil and drive that till it.
You were going to do that anyway, John.
There's a little bit of that. Yeah, that is my
that does get into, the problem that I have with proprietary systems is that there's no incentive to keep it updated. Right? Like I drive a lot of cars that are 10, 8 years old. They still work. Cars are around for a lot longer now. And a lot of those infotainment systems, they're just not supported anymore. They stopped giving updates to them. So I do wonder if you are charging for an infotainment system, if that does create an incentive for that manufacturer to keep it updated.
It's also just still going to be worse. Like that's the other thing is like people, and this is going to sound like tinfoil hat, right? But I'm going to go all the way to driver safety and the idea that driving is kind of an inherently dangerous activity. It is really only as safe as it is predictable. And one of the few things we've done in the past few years to kind of make having a phone and using a phone in your vehicle more safe is just by integrating it into your infotainment system by way of CarPlay and Android Auto. And you have this like the same interface no matter what car you're getting in. If it has one of those systems and you're using your same phone, you know exactly how to interact to get to the stuff that you want to get to without it necessarily being as distracting, as each car you get into has its own system with its own menus and sub menus, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And like some of them are touchscreens, some of them are knobs. Like you've got to figure all that out. Like we had kind of figured this out, and now this is just taking us back to, 10 years ago.
Well, I added a camera to my car so that I could FaceTime and drive using the built-in, and it's working really, really
I'm
well.
glad.
It's exceptional. It's exceptional. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now I have a new law to propose to the North Carolina legislature to make that illegal. But yeah.
Is it not yet illegal?
I'm sure you could get ticketed for that, I'm sure, right? Like they could get you for distracted driving.
That's
if they
really
could ever catch
interesting.
you, because you're always driving so fast.
So fast in my minivan. All right, Alex, so glad you're here. You've shared a bit about what you're doing with Semipublic to me. And just like joking aside, you are doing a lot of things all at once. Go back to kind of the beginning and just like the overall kind of not necessarily the what came first, but just give us the history lesson of where you got to 6 alsos and what you're doing day to day.
The through line. Well, I forgot
line.
I forgot to mention my history, which was that before all of this, I was a product manager for NPR. Specifically, I worked on satellite audio distribution in public media, extremely niche, but we actually did get into like car radios. So I felt like I was taking a blast from the past listening to this conversation. There's too much.
So, wait, were you responsible for the distribution of getting a market to our interstellar audience? Was that coming through your satellites?
It probably went through a similar satellite.
Gotcha. Thank you for the extra
Glad
help.
nobody's listening interstellarly. Also,
you're welcome.
That's good.
All right.
They all share satellites. Anyway, so public media, right? They distribute their audio through satellites. NPR runs a company that did that. I was a product manager. They lost 30% of their budget over a year ago. And they went into what you might call founder mode, where they just got rid of all the product and project managers. And it's kind of a difficult product manager job market out there right now, especially if you used to work in distributing audio through satellite, which is an extremely niche. Nobody's hiring for that. So a few months went by after I was laid off. I couldn't get any job, interviews. And this was around January of last year. So Trump was about to enter office. It was clear, right, that public media's federal funding was at least at risk. And I was super disappointed in the level of reporting that was happening about the industry. There just weren't any real metrics, especially about how much stations relied on federal funding, right? And if they lost that federal funding, you're basically losing that percentage of your revenue forever, which can be pretty devastating. So I wrote an article. I gathered a bunch of data about stations, and I wrote an article for a trade publication for public media. That did really well. So I did 2 others, and then I launched the Substack in April. That gained a little speed. Substack is fickle, as you two know. There are a lot of people who are making a lot of money on there, but sometimes it's hard to get noticed. So when public media lost its federal funding in July, because I was already there, I'd done a ton of metrics. My subscribers just kind of skyrocketed.
Right.
And on the same day that public media lost their federal funding, I was in a group chat with a bunch of people who used to work at NPR, and we just were talking about what if you could adopt a station? Like, what if there was an easy way to see what stations are most at risk? And I already had that data. It was on a Postgres server in my basement, and it still is.
Why did you have that data? Did you find it, or you were just finding, like, what drove you to get the data in the first place?
Well, to go back to NPR, I was the only product manager, and the way that they priced is basically a B2B service. NPR was selling a service to stations, and the way they priced it was based on how much a station made in revenue every year. It was a little bit more complicated than that, but that's the broad stroke. And I had to do analysis on station financial data anyway as a product manager. So I knew where to get it. It's not a 990 like other nonprofits, it's on their website. So I already had access to them. I mean, they were publicly available. I knew where they were. I knew that the information was easy to get. So I got 500 and I went to 580 plus websites to grab it. And so I already had that data in July. And basically, I stuck a front end on it, which is adoptstation.org.
Wow.
And that really took off because people were energized and looking for a way to help out.
I think one of the things that's interesting about how some of this politically came to be, which you touched on a little bit earlier, is just like a misconception of how much the local stations get from federal, and how much NPR got from federal. Like, I think there was the sense that, like, oh, we call it public, it must be 100% funded. I don't listen to this station, or I don't listen to NPR. This American Life, not for me. And so that kind of helped drive some of the political force behind it. When in reality, you know, I think the stations, it's what, like 10%, depending on the station. At least in our ones, when they always advertise at fundraising time, it's always like 90% comes from viewer or listeners like you, et cetera, et cetera. But the driving force of it was getting people rallied behind the idea of our money's going to stuff that we don't care about, or is whatever, subverting our, because so many youth are listening to NPR, right? Subverting our youth. And so some of that like misconception kind of helped drive it. And then I love that, like, what you're doing too is kind of just taking that data and making it more accessible to some of the folks so that they can actually kind of action against it.
Yeah, I mean, basically, when I talk about Semipublic, when I pitch it to other people, it's basically that knowing creates action. Right. So there are several different angles. One is there's a misconception about how much stations relied on federal funding, like you were alluding to, Nate. But on the flip side, there are people who didn't know exactly how much, like, their local station actually relied on federal funding. And really, I mean, the initial analysis that I did on how much stations rely on federal funding, which fed directly into Adopt Station, a lot of it was talking about like Alaska stations and native run stations. They would rely on federal funding for anywhere from 50 to 98% of their total revenue. And that's because they don't have,
there's not enough people.
There's not enough people. There are not enough businesses to buy sponsorships and stuff like that. So there's a segment. There are some stations that didn't rely on it very much at all. Then there are some stations, and it affected specific people more heavily than others that relied on it for almost all of their revenue.
Yeah. I mean, like you cut 10%, like even if it is 10%, right? Like that's still a critical amount of, I mean, even folks can just kind of wrap their mind around that from their own budget. John can't because he's really wealthy. But for the rest of us, you chop 10% of our budget off, like, ouch, you feel that.
If you ran a small business, I mean, losing 10% of your revenue forever, I mean, that could mean that you close for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So you didn't start out to build an app. So even though you have the background for being a product manager and the tech and that sort of thing, you're really a journalist that's using what you know from a tech perspective to go. Like, are you chasing your own ideas?
Well, it all started, right, as an exploration of public media, right? And I do a ton of different data analysis. And most of what I do is data scraping and collection. So a lot of it kind of just came up when I was collecting data, like interrogating data. That's when product opportunities pop up. Not just in the nonprofit world, of course, but in July when federal funding ended, people literally asked, they almost specifically asked for this exact website that I built. And then, of course, like a few weeks ago, I launched a a job listing website for public media, but I was already scraping all the job listings for the industry
Hmm.
already. And I noticed that they're spread out against at least 15 different sites. And these are all public media specific job sites. There used to be a
Hmm.
central one from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, but I was scraping it because I was interested in industry data, like whether stations were actually, hiring or not. And then I was like, why do I have to go to 15 different sites?
Yeah.
Can't I just build one? And then I did.
And so this is where it kind of connects a little bit to more of just traditional product management, so to speak. I feel like my style of product management, for better or for worse, is really like, hey, this is what the world can look like. You kind of like skate to where the puck is going, that sort of thing, where you're like, we got to kind of ideate. And now, all of Scrum and all that stuff is really just to get there quickly. And like your vision might not be completely good and true, and you got to, adjust a little bit. But what it sounds like from your story, it's different from that, where you didn't necessarily have because of this kind of obscure market opportunity, we can build this thing and grow it into this. You're almost like, well, we got a need right here and now. And then tools like vibe coding, I can build it on top of what I already have. And so you just kind of naturally get to the next thing that you're building. Is that how you feel about it? Where you're like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Legit, next week I'll learn what I need to do next week.
I think it's a mixture. I would say
Mm.
that doing data and analytics on the public media industry is extremely niche,
Mm.
as you were
Hmm.
talking about.
Sure.
But all these ideas, when I'm thinking about gathering data for analysis, and we talk about Adopt Station in my jobs website. Income for me is coming from the data and analysis part that I do on Semipublic on the Substack. But when I'm thinking about new things to write about, like data to gather, it's kind of like what you were talking about, John, where it's not necessarily a slam dunk when you start exploring it. Like you get a little bit of an idea and then you
Mm.
go and take a look at it. And it's only after like you start doing the process, you really, I mean, interrogate the data, right? Like you know the data back and forth, and that's
Hmm.
when a clearer opportunity presents itself. So it's the work of a lot of really serious, data gathering and analysis, but every once in a while something obvious will pop up. You got to ride the wave.
Just doing it. Yeah. I do like the idea of, probably for every, 3 conversations about Gen AI and how it's bad, then there's one about vibe coding and how it's just hot garbage. None of it's good, blah, blah, blah. And then I keep hearing stories like yours of like, well, maybe, but also proof is in the pudding.
Yeah, and I should be upfront. I use bolt.new to create the front end for Adopt Station for the jobs website and for
Hmm.
the layoffs tracker. Um, I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily a back end engineer, but I'm much more comfortable with back end stuff on
Mm.
websites and front
Sure.
end stuff. I mean, like as a product manager, you have to dabble in CSS, especially when you're managing front end products. And NPR, the distribution arm, they had a website that I was also in charge of. So I know
Mm.
I can dig in there, but I'm not a designer. I'm not a website
Mm.
designer. So basically, Bolt vibe coding, hate that term, but that's what happened. Vibe coding allowed me to do it within
Yeah.
24 hours. I would say that, I do see a lot of opinions about vibe coding, and I do think there are a lot of security, you know, considerations that you have to keep in mind when you're doing vibe coding. But Adopt a Station is literally a front end that looks at a database. There's
Hmm.
no writing or anything. It is just reading it, and then you get sent to another website, and that's
Hmm.
extremely low risk.
Sure.
Right. So the risk was extremely low. So I didn't really need to worry too much about the security output of vibe coding.
How would you have solved this challenge if this had happened in 2016? How many more people would you have had to involve?
This would have taken me months. I probably would have to. I mean, I would have to get people who do web development as a, as their profession, probably. I mean, even back in 2016, I've built websites using different frameworks like Hugo, stuff like that. But um, with Bolt, I was able to tell it exactly what to do, right? And then when you're working with a specific framework, especially like way back before LLMs or vibe coding, you're kind of limited to what you can do. Like I don't know if I could have queried a database the same way that I do now based on my like limited understanding and the tools that were available to me back then.
That sounds like such a funny thing, like so obvious and stupid sounding, but true. Like you only know what you know, and then we're like, well, yeah, but now you don't have to actually know all that much. No shade. Like you can be pretty dangerous without actually knowing how to query the back end, how to actually set up this stuff, how to do whatever. And you're like, well, I'll just kind of see what happens. I was thinking as you're saying that, how many Jira stories would you have written in 2016? And just that.
It I don't think I probably wouldn't have been able to make it. That's for sure. Or it would have been a WordPress site.
Yeah. Yeah. It would have been on Zynga, Nate. Do you remember Zynga?
Oh, yeah.
It would have been on
yeah.
GeoCities.
GeoCities.
Yeah.
Little balloons floating across the screen.
Yeah. I do love the speed, and just kind of connected back to what you were saying before, speed to joke, speed to market. That's a big part of it where, you did ride the wave, and a little bit of, the idea of you just got lucky, and maybe that's dismissive in this case. There's probably a fair bit of luck, but the 15 years you had, doing this, getting the data set, getting stuff ready, like you did a lot of preparation ahead of time, obviously, in that, but then you're just primed and ready to go. The fact that you ship this in 24 hours is pretty remarkable. I mean, how much of visitor traffic are you comfortable sharing? You're a non-zero visitor site.
Well, I'll tell you, in the first 2 weeks we got something like 30,000 visitors, which for public media is really good. And I will also say, it was hosted on Netlify for free. So I was able to get it out extremely quickly, also with an extremely low investment. I mean, really, like starting out, the investment that I made was to buy the domain name. Like the tools the tools that are available to get something out really quickly that's meaningful are insane.
Yeah. What's funny what you said, John, is I was reading an article. And I'm probably gonna get this wrong, but I think it was Vince Gilligan, the guy who did Breaking Bad and all those.
Yeah.
And his quote was, I think it was "Luck is timing, and timing is luck," which is kind of sort of this situation that I think, Alex, you found yourself in, where timing was on your side at the same time. Like what else were you going to do? You had to do it, kind of, or nobody else was going to.
Yeah, and and it was months of data work that I did before that, and for the jobs website, and for the layoff tracker that I created. I talked to a lot of foundations, and one of them remarked to me that they'll put out an RFP, they'll put out a request for proposal for some work, right? And that the problem with the current environment, especially with like local journalism, public media, so put out an RFP. They'll assign the contract to somebody, and they may get the data in 3 years, right? So there's a huge advantage, especially with foundations and with nonprofit work, and being faster, having for-profit speed, right? Being a nonprofit and having for-profit speed.
Yeah. So what's next for these projects? What are you focused on?
I'm hoping for a big shout out and a late night show. I can't say which one on the podcast, but I got confirmation today that that's going to happen. So I'm expecting a big increase to adopt a station.
It'll be hard to tell between that and this episode of Getting to Market, which is providing the bump for you. But
yeah.
Good luck parsing.
Yeah, maybe you should add a UTM code or something to help me out.
Yeah, Nate, do your job of being a marketer.
Yeah.
But I am spinning. So Semipublic is the umbrella, right? That houses Adopt a Station. I'm spinning it off into a nonprofit. So I'm going to chase grant work, and I'm hoping to devote more time to more metrics about public media and tracking what happens from here. So yeah.
Awesome. We'll look forward to hearing more about that shout out. Hopefully maybe we can post that in the show notes when it comes about. Lessons Learned is a segment that we do at the end of every episode. Alex, we won't make you go first, but John, what did you learn this week?
I think we should make Alex go first. That's what I learned.
Put him on the spot.
No,
Wow.
I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I don't have a great lesson learned necessarily, but
You never do. It's okay.
thank you. I think part of what my curiosity lends itself to is just like, I don't even know how to say it, I guess. The lesson that I learned, I was talking to a friend, and she said that during COVID, her desk was in her bedroom. And so she spent 20 hours a day in her bedroom. And so just that curiosity, like you put that together at first, like that's insane. No, you didn't. And then I was like, no, actually, that's probably true. And then, she said for years, it was 20 hours a day. And I thought that's just wild. So that's what's been rolling around in my head of like putting all the things, just kind of the different pieces and parts together to realize how the result of 20 hours a day inside your bedroom for at least a year, if not longer, and the insanity of that. So it wasn't necessarily a huge lesson. After that, I was like, I got to go for a walk. And then I did. I just went, I got to go. And then I went for a walk. I got to get outside. It's beautiful here. So that was that.
That is rough. That would be really rough, I feel like, in a city where you're living, maybe in a smaller place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Woof.
Brutal. What'd you learn?
Me?
Sure.
I can't tell who you're looking at. I'm looking at a flat screen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Alex, do you have one? Did something come to mind?
I've got something, and that anecdote brings me back. We lived in DC for 8 years, me and my wife, in a 500 square foot apartment.
As John calls it, the swamp. Yeah,
the swamp.
Wants to drain it.
The swamp, absolutely. It does feel like a swamp in the summertime. It's brutal. And my desk during the pandemic was in our living room, so I spent like 16 hours a day, 24 hours a day in our tiny apartment. There were only 2 rooms, but one of them was the living room where my desk was. And it's terrible. Yeah. But if you have to make it work, crazy. Then, it's not the worst thing ever. So I live in Asheville, North Carolina. I just learned this week. So in the 50s, this is extremely random. There's a huge hotel called the Grove Park Inn in Asheville. Old, a lot of people know it. It hosts the National Gingerbread House competition every year. In the 50s, the Supreme Court signed an official document designating that as the alternative Supreme Court chambers if there was ever a nuclear fallout.
That's right. There's a plaque, isn't there?
There's a plaque? Yeah, there is.
Yeah, and okay, that's right. That's why I've seen that. Yeah.
They've never designated anything else as
that's funny.
Their secondary.
Well, I think President Obama, like a lot of the presidents have stayed there, right? Historically, I feel like most of them have at some point.
Yeah,
since it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Most
of
them. It's a pretty popular place. I don't know why.
In the 50s?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was in the mid 50s, and I don't know why the Supreme Court chose the Grove Park Inn, and I don't know. Well, not something in Northern Virginia.
The Biltmore had a lot of like priceless pieces of art stored in it during World War II. And so it's funny that they would like just in that time frame, 10, 15 years, whatever, because I don't know when during the war that stuff was shipped there. I can't remember. But like, hey, you guys are kind of consolidating on one area. Maybe spread it out a little bit.
Maybe don't choose Asheville. Yeah, Kentucky. That's a great place. Well, I mean, I guess it's as good a place as any, right? But hopefully this never happens. But if they have to choose an alternative place to hold the Supreme Court, there's only one place that's authorized to do it.
It's got a
That's
spa.
the
It's got
Grove
a golf
Park Inn in
course.
Asheville, North Carolina.
It's ready to go.
There you go.
My lesson learned is there's an article in the Washington Post, the biggest careers that have now vanished according to data, and this kind of goes back a ways. Anybody want to take any guesses at careers that have gone by the wayside as time has marched on?
Vacuum repair.
Shoe shiners.
Shoe shiners. So cobblers is one of them. Sailors and
cobbler
deckhands.
is someone who fixes shoes. So
not someone who makes apple cobbler.
Oh,
cherry cobbler. Because those where are the cobblers these days? Those
who
folks
eats
have
cherry
disappeared.
cobbler?
Tons of people. So mine workers, blacksmiths, boatmen, and canalmen, which I feel like was that a thing in the U.S. like canalmen?
Yeah, somebody had to lead the donkey team along canals because they pulled it with a rope.
Oh, well, this was very sad. John, millers have also decreased over time. Cabinet makers, metal molders, meat cutters, stone cutters and carvers, sawyers, plasterers, and millwrights are among the careers that have gotten replaced over time.
What's a millwright?
Someone who writes mills? I don't know.
I mean, they grind flour in a mill. Is that what a millwright might be?
Or they write about them?
Some of these haven't disappeared completely, but others have. I would
like
to know which ones
it just shows like kind of where they've kind of down scoped. But what I thought was interesting was they kind of tried to control the analysis a little bit by saying like, if there was somebody that was in like carriage repair, we can kind of describe that as auto repair. So we'll look at it that way. So they kind of tried to control for some of the things that have just kind of changed nomenclature or by way of technology has changed and shifted. That was interesting. Like, when's the last time you met a deckhand, John?
All the time. I think the last lighthouse resident died, like within the last maybe 10 years. Like the last person that was, like manually lighting. And I don't even know what it takes to run a lighthouse.
I think
they just died recently.
Did they? Because I feel like I've seen where there's like a news article about a job posting for a.
I only read half of it,
person.
So it doesn't matter.
Okay, the back.
I think you can live in a lighthouse to upkeep it as a historical building, but I don't know if they actually use it for navigation anymore.
All night.
Yeah,
manually.
Just write Nickel Creek songs. That's what you do up there.
Rotate it in a circle. Alex, thank you for coming on. I know John has sworn off public media ever since he said that Sesame Street got too brown once Snuffleupagus came about. But where can people go to kind of help you support you in your mission?
Wait, how long have you been waiting on that joke?
Like midway through. I thought of it midway through, and I was like, when should I put it in?
You're so happy with yourself. We're really proud of you. Okay. Alex, where can people find you?
So my main website is semipublic.co. You can go to adoptastation.org to help out a public media station. I'm on LinkedIn as Alex Curley, Curley. And then Adopt Station has social media handles on Instagram and Blue Sky.
And our marketing person will put all that in the show notes for you listeners so you can hear where those are along the tracking UTM-2 so you can find out where your bump in traffic is coming from. Really glad you're here, Alex. Thank you. It feels this way with most guests, which is a pretty low bar, but having you here absolutely elevates what we're doing and feels like having a professional with a bunch of idiots trying to figure this out is always fun, but I appreciate it.
Yes, thanks for having me. It was great.
This was so much fun.
Cool. All right. Good to see you. Good to see you both. Have a great week, everybody. Tuesdays, subscribe, get into market. We'll nail the tagline sooner or later.
Sometime.
It'll
happen.
All right. See y'all. Bye.